Howdy y'all. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. My name is Josh, and just as a brief explanation as to who I am and what I like to do is that I like to talk about fashion, whether on the low end of things to the high end and anywhere in between. I'm someone who loves to ramble on about anything fashion related. So, without further ado, today I'm going to be talking about a pretty well debated topic, and has been a pretty well debated topic for years and years and years. Are high-end items worth it? Higher priced premium items compared to their cheaper alternatives that you can find in stores like H&M, Forever 21, ASOS, Zara, etc. Now, just as a preface, I'm not a guy that has a lot of money, to be quite frank with you. I came from a very middle class family. I don't have a lot of disposable income, although I wish I did. And I'm basically talking from a consumer standpoint, which I think is probably one of the most genuine standpoints, to be honest with you, in comparison to the fashion industry. But I'm just trying to be honest as far as the consumer is concerned. Now, I'm going to be taking in a lot of situations, you could say, into consideration when talking about this. And basically what I want to say before saying any of this is that always spend within your means. That is always true when it comes to clothing or just about anything you want to buy. Always spend within your means. But with that being said, let's start talking about fast fashion and cheaper alternatives. The number one way for you to tell if something is worth it for you to spend your money on, your hard-earned money on, is how you appreciate the item that you're buying. Now, when it comes to fast fashion, there's definitely some good sides to it. There's plenty of bad sides that I'm sure everybody will tell you about, as far as ethics and everything else goes. But the good sides of fast fashion is that it's a great way to start experimenting with your own style. They can provide you really cost-effective ways for you to basically just test the waters, dip your feet into a new style, and see if that's something that you want to spend more money investing your time into. And I'm not going to say that every single thing that a fast fashion brand puts out is garbage. Sometimes they can do pretty good things, but it's definitely a really versatile way for you to kind of just test. And if that's where you find your need, if that's where you find your comfort, you don't like spending a whole lot of money on clothes, you don't like researching into a brand or a style particularly more, then fast fashion is your go-to. If you don't appreciate things more than their styling and how they look or brand, I would honestly stick to fast fashion. But if your interest in fashion and styling goes past that, that's where fast fashion then becomes inadequate as a source for which that you can find your clothing. Personally, I am not a person that likes fast fashion all that much. I just can't bring myself to appreciate it as much as the other things that I own and the other things that I spend my money on. A really, really good example of this, I know this isn't a fast fashion brand, but here we go. The Converse Chuck 70. Great shoe, amazing shoe for just about anybody in the world. Really just a beautiful shoe. This is a reiteration of Converse's original Chuck Taylor from the 70s. So this is going to have a pre-yellowed midsole, a considerably narrow foot, I would say, and a memory foam insole. Great shoe. Great shoe. Costs like 80 to 100 bucks. Great shoe, great for everyday use, looks great. This often gets compared to this designer shoe right here. This is the Rick Owens Ramones. These are great, in my opinion. These are a pair of Dark Shadow Ramones. I don't know from what season, but I did get them from another YouTuber. This is... I got them for like $168, and I got them from Ray Gmia on YouTube. And his vintage curated site is Ray's Corner. But these two shoes are compared quite often, and this one is going to go ahead and represent the cheaper alternative, whereas this one is going to represent obviously the higher end of things. Now, they do arguably have a very, very similar silhouette. They're very, very like inspired. Well, you could say that the Rick Owens Ramones was inspired by the Converse itself. I think that's pretty fair to say, because Converse has been around for ages on ages, and this is a perfected Converse, I would say, the Chuck 70. The Rick Owens definitely have a different appeal to them. The silhouette comparatively to the Chuck 70, this is significantly chunkier, looks significantly different on foot, feels different on foot, and I will say that the Chuck 70 actually is more comfortable. But the Rick Owens does have so many more aspects to it that I appreciate that make this shoe worth the money that I paid. Again, that was $168. They usually retail at around $400, which is kind of crazy, but if you have that disposable income and it's something that you want to build yourself up to, it's all you. But compared to the other one, this one has a shark tooth sole that actually provides a little bit more traction than the Converse. The toe cap is going to be a hard, very, very good quality leather. The sole is actually not only glued onto the bottom, like the Converse, which is simply glue. This has a stitch that goes around a good portion of the shoe itself while still being glued, so that adds to the durability of it. Has a leather insole, also very common in luxury footwear, and is just a shoe that I find myself wearing so much. Combined with the Rick Owens like branding attached to it, Rick Owens is another designer that I find absolutely amazing, someone that I appreciate as far as like history goes. Not to say that Converse doesn't have history, but as an avant-garde designer making such a great daily shoe, this provides a little bit more of a backstory that I like to tell. A story that I like to associate myself with, something that I absolutely appreciate. The durability is significantly more there with this stitching. The sole doesn't separate from the canvas upper as much as the Converse do. They usually produce a crease at the edge of the toe box that tends to rip the rubber at the bottom. So yes, the Ramones definitely are more durable than the Converse Chuck 70. And they are both great looking shoes, and honestly I'm very thankful to have both of them. But they serve different purposes for me. The Rick Owens have so much more to them, more nuance to them, that I find it way more worth it. I find it something that I want to keep in my wardrobe significantly longer, while usually clothing of cheaper alternatives, they usually get cycled out fairly quickly. So for longevity reasons, for styling reasons, and for historic reasons, it makes me feel better to actually wear the Ramones. And I know not everybody's going to get that feeling, and that's perfectly fine. I know a lot of people are going to be like, you're just a hype beast, or you're an elitist about it, or you're pretentious about it. I like to think that I'm not, but if that's your interpretation of what I'm doing, then that's fine. I don't really care, to be honest with you. But that is going to be my synopsis of cheap versus high-end. Like wrapping it all up, I prefer to go the higher end route. I prefer to save my money and go ahead and buy the thing that makes me feel a little bit better. Not better about myself, let me clarify. I don't feel better about myself, but I do feel a little bit more confident knowing that what I have has more meaning than just looking good. And I'm not saying looking good isn't a priority, but cheaper clothing, cheaper alternatives to higher end clothing tend to be less quality, tend to be less ethically made, and don't have much nuance to them, whereas the high end of things usually do. What do you guys think? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Feel free to subscribe if you feel so inclined. Like the video if you really want to do me a favor. But other than that, I'll see you guys in my next video. Later.